sitting at the negotiating table. I am, and so is Speaker Boehner. He's getting a lot of pressure from the Tea Party folks to dig in his heels, even if it hurts and destroys the recovery that we have going now. What's worse, the country doesn't care much about the Tea Party.
Harry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wake up. Wake up. Yeah, it's all right.
She's talking about cowboy poets. With us now, the Republican Congressman from Texas, Republican Conference Chairman, Representative Jeb Hensarling.
Wow.
I'm not good.
You just told me something about him.
Amazing. Look at this guy.
Amazing.
He's. Can we say your age on TV? It's
yes.
Doesn't hurt my feelings.
53.
He's 53.
He looks so young. How do
you should have what he's having, Joe.
I know, exactly. So the budget. It looks a lot like 95. It's a mess out there. The freshmen pulling one way, Boehner trying to pick up Democratic votes. What's going on?
Well, we need to ask Harry Reid. I mean, the House Republicans have already passed a bill to keep the government open, to start putting the nation on a fiscally sustainable path, turn that battleship.
But Harry Reid thinks it cuts too much, right?
Well, no, we don't have. You have to ask Harry Reid, obviously, but what we don't have is we don't have a bill. We don't have a bill out of the Senate. Not only do we not have a bill out of the Senate, we don't even have a plan out of the Senate.
No, so the Senate hasn't passed anything for you guys to even take to conference.
Well, exactly. So we're kind of left to negotiate with ourselves. If we're going to negotiate with ourselves, personally, I'd like to cut some more spending, which ultimately I believe will help create more jobs in America. Americans want less spending and more jobs.
How much do you all want to cut at the end of the day?
Well, we passed our bill, H.R. 1, that would provide $60 billion of savings over what was enacted last year. Now, in terms of history, that's wonderful. It's the greatest cut since World War II. But it's also reducing last year's federal budget by a whopping 2%, so it may be historic, but it's hardly draconian. You know, sometimes, Joe, you just got to quit spending money you don't have, or borrowing, as you probably know, roughly 40 cents on the dollar, much of it from the Chinese, sending the bill to our children and grandchildren. It hurts job growth, so threatens our national security.
When do you expand it out, though, from you're dealing with 10%, 11% of the overall budget? Are Republicans ready to go after entitlements, Social Security, Medicare?
Well, when you say
Medicaid,
go after, what we're ready to do is save and secure them for future generations, including my first grader and my third grader.
Right.
You know, the American people deserve the facts. Don't take my word for it. Go to the website of the trustees for Medicare and Social Security, and they will tell you that these are programs that are going broke.
Do you agree with Marco Rubio that if you're going to preserve Social Security and Medicare, you've got to tell future generations that you're not going to get it until you're 70?
Well, I served on the President's Fiscal Responsibility Commission, and even though the Social Security portion of that plan was not my plan, in order to save it for my children, I'm certainly willing to put that on the table, as I'm willing to do something called progressive price indexing, as opposed to wage indexing. Ultimately, you know, I would have another plan, but again, these are programs that are going broke. If you don't embrace a reform plan, Joe, you're embracing the status quo, and the status quo under law is that my children get an automatic 22% cut.
I think the Congressman makes some very interesting points. To get the debt down to 60% of GDP in 2020, which is what most people say has to be done to be sustainable, you have to cut back on entitlements. You also have to increase taxes. That's what Simpson Bowles makes clear. That's what Tom Coburn and Dick Durbin make clear. You cannot do it without entitlements and without tax increases. Can't be done. If you want to do it without any tax increases, you will cut Social Security and Medicare by $2 trillion between now and 2020. Not very many
Are you prepared to do that?
Well, I don't agree with that assessment, which is one of the reasons
that's Simpson Bowles.
Well, I know. I was there. I was a part of the panel. But here's part of the problem here, Al. They have tax increases in the plan, but there is no guarantee that those tax increases simply won't be used to further more spending. So, number one, the reason I walked away from the plan, and I respect those who do, and frankly, a lot of good portions of that plan ought to be brought to the attention of the American people. I might add, the President of the United States rejected every single provision of his own Fiscal Responsibility Commission plan. But number one, fundamentally, health care was not on the table. If if you don't have health care on the table, you're not solving the problem. Second of all, to increase taxes and yet not have a mechanism to ensure it's paying off the debt, that's Andrews Air Force Base all over again.
Okay, but let's say there is a mechanism, and I understand. And by the way, I would never support any tax increases unless I knew that Medicare, Medicaid, Pentagon spending, that everything was out there, the tax increases would go to reduce the deficit. Let's say we have the dreaded, we're going back to 2000 here, lockbox, the Al Gore lockbox, that those tax increases are going to go into the lockbox. So would you, under those circumstances, say, yes, it's a possibility, eliminating the Bush tax cuts? Because after all, if you eliminate those tax cuts, you just go back to the tax rates that we had under Reagan and Clinton.
Well, listen, one of the reasons that I think we finally saw a slight uptick in the economy is, at least for 2 years, Republicans helped forestall the single largest tax increase in American history.
We added $1 trillion to the debt.
Well, listen, when we cut tax rates, we actually got more tax revenue. Don't take my word for it. In the recent unemployment and GDP, listen, I don't know if it's here to stay.
The last couple months were because we didn't repeal the Bush. Come on, nobody thinks. I mean, it may have an effect over the long run, but not in January.
No, it has everything to do. It has everything to do with confidence, and frankly, I think divided government at least lets people know that they know what the upper limit of the economic pain from the administration is. Again, if people are going to try to bring tax increases to the table, which I don't agree with, they're at least going to have to bring health care to the table. And they didn't do it.
No question.
No doubt. What about the debt ceiling, and what are you willing to deal with going forward? Are you willing to force a crisis over the debt ceiling if you can't agree on short-term money?
We're not. No, nobody wants a debt crisis. But what we've said before, that if the President of the United States wants our help to help pay his bills, he's going to have to start cutting up the credit cards. We need to see some type of significant action in reducing spending and changing the whole budget process.
What
from
if you
essentially,
don't? Will you vote against raising the debt ceiling?
Well, there's the old saying that, the classic definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I would hope that the President of the United States would not want to do that.
Right, no, I'm asking about
in that case, no, nobody wants to see
by the way, I don't
America.
judge you. You're looking at a guy that was crazy enough. I voted against raising the debt ceiling to $5 trillion. That's how much it's gone up. I'm still as crazy. But I'm asking you, will you follow in my self-destructive, nihilistic path and just say no and put world markets in an absolute free fall by voting against raising the debt ceiling?
The president has it within his power to make sure that all creditors are paid.
Is it possible that you vote no on raising the debt ceiling?
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and negotiate this on your show. I hate to disappoint you. The president has it within his ability to pay all of our debts, and we invite him to quit sending billion-dollar deficits.
He's pretty good, Al.
He is.
I'm not going to bait him into
there, Joe.
I tried to get you on my crazy train, and you would not bite.
Give Joe a copy of your health plan, what you eat, your workout regimen.
Looking pretty good.
Yes.
I'll
All
send it
right,
to you.
Congressman.
I think it's probably living in a place where it doesn't snow 10 inches in